There you go. Stop.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Beneath the Lift Tower. My name's Charles McGillivray and I'm joined as always by Simon Stacey and Jess Kebble. It wasn't the best to start seasons, was it? How you both doing?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good. It wasn't a good watch, but it was not a good watch.
No, but I mean, realistically, were we expecting a win down there?
No, but I wasn't expecting that either.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I didn't expect us to win. I know we all predicted a win, but we were just being biased. But yeah, I didn't expect us to basically get our pants pulled down again. But hey ho, it happens. First game of the season. It's not over. Everyone's panicking. No need to panic yet.
Nah, there's definitely no need to panic. I mean, I know the result at the end because it got away for us, but you know, with 60 minutes to go, we were well in the game. You know, I did say ahead of the game, I wanted us to be within winning 60, bring on the substitutes, and then we could snatch it at the end. But it sort of went to a point we were within distance at 60, but they had other ideas, didn't they? and that interception try just killed us. You know, the slap down which went forward to a foot player in front of the ball. You know, if you've touched the ball and you've knocked it forward and a player in front of you picks it up and they go on and score the try, I'm not going to blame it. A very intricate part of the rules. It's hard to see it, but that isn't that what happened?
Yeah, stuff happens, isn't it? The refs missed stuff. There was 3 or 4 incidents that should have been reviewed, but right at the end where Ram I think he got punched and he straight in the face. He didn't even look at that. I was like, well, whatever. I give up. I just muted the telly, watched the last 3 minutes, and then left.
I think that was the bit that stood out for me. I felt like it wasn't the best reffing performance, but I think we also did things that we got away with, and so today I think it was. I know it stands out because like you said, it goes forward, they score a try, whatever. But I think a lot of things were just missed, like generally, like across the board. But I don't know. I was really unimpressed with the ref's attitude when that fight happened. If I'm being honest, like it was. You know, Fairbank had gone up to him at that point. He was like, well, something happened in there. Like, he's obviously making the point that, like, something had happened. Like, he knew something had happened. And obviously it had happened to Ram, and he was trying to make that point. And the ref was like, well, we just need to move past it and let it go, don't we? And I was like, well, that's not what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to just decide that it's near to the end or whatever. Or, you know, you don't just tell someone, well, let's just let it go. I was like, that didn't really sit right with me. Not that it would have changed the outcome of the game. Like, I don't mean it in that sense. Like, it would have made any difference whatsoever. I don't want to get to a point in a game where like things like that would, well, just going to let it go and, you know, tell everyone to calm down when someone's definitely, I'm hesitant to say punch, but he's definitely been hit in the face in some way.
He moved his arm into his face, didn't he? He didn't. I wouldn't say it was a punch.
Yeah.
If that was a punch, then it really is a bit light. But he definitely moved his.
Yeah, it felt more like just kind of like a push in his face, really. More, yeah, but that's still foul play, right? You know.
Yeah,
but like sometimes things get missed even within fights, things can get missed. But it's obvious that Fairbank has gone and told him that, you know, my teammate's been hit in the face, and then his attitude to sort of be, well, I think it's best that we just let it go. I was like, I didn't, and those were pretty much his words. I think I was like, it didn't really sit right with me as like an attitude that we should be having in games. But other than that, I think things were missed on both sides. And the reality is we were really, really poor, and we wouldn't have deserved to win no matter what.
You know, I'm not sure I agree with that fully, right? We deserve to lose, don't get me wrong, right? But I don't think we were poor. And you can look at the result and have views, but I thought we played really well for large parts of that game.
I think we played well for 20 minutes, and I think for 60 minutes we were second place by like a big margin for me. Like, we just couldn't seem to get anything right. Like, even people that you would expect to come on, like Finn Smith was not good to kind of, quite a few people, the whole team wasn't, but that kind of stood out to me as like, that just wasn't working for him that day. And that happens. Like, you do have off games sometimes, but I think there was only that 20-minute period where we were I would say we were better for the first 20 of the second half. I think we were the better team, but we didn't put any points on the board to get ahead enough of them. So like I said, when that intercept try happened, it just killed us off. Like we were like, they'd worked so hard for 20 minutes to get back into it. They closed that gap up. That happened, and then it was just like in their mind, it was like, oh, we put all this effort in, and they've come away with a bigger lead.
Yeah, no, yeah, like I said, I thought we were actually in that game. I thought we defended pretty well for large spells of the game. I thought we had momentum for quite a bit of the game. But as soon as that interception try occurred, it just completely went. And like before that, I thought, you know what, we could nick this. And Augusta started getting into the game a bit. And there were a few line breaks, and Ferbs was having more of an influence. And then bam, it was just deflated, and they just went bang. You know, few tries, and it looks like a thrashing, but. I'm not convinced it was. I don't think the level of difference between the two teams was such that it was completely gone. And you know,
no, I think I wouldn't say Bath were excellent. No, I feel like, but I also feel like they were much closer to it perhaps being an even bigger lead. Like it felt like we were more off the mark than they were off the mark, and that they were more likely to put things together, which obviously in the end they did. But it's also it's a case of like it is quite a new team. Like I know we talk about how that 9 to 15, for example, play together quite a lot and stuff like that, but it's still new. It's particularly 1 to 8. You know, there's a lot of new things going on, and this idea that we can just expect the team to just completely gel immediately when they've, this is the first time that they've actually been put under any pressure as a team together. And this idea that everyone that comes in is just going to automatically fit perfectly into the way that we play, it doesn't work like that most of the time. It doesn't work like that 99% of the time, I'd say. You know, you have to work at it.
That was what I was going to say. You look at the two sides. Their side was basically the 15 that started the final, wasn't it? We had a lot of changes. Yeah, we had a lot more changes. New boys to the system. It's just the first game as well. Half those lads haven't hardly had any minutes either. You got to remember that. So I'm not making any excuses. The interception was the swinger. If we'd gone the other way and scored, it could have been, but they scored. That game over. So. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not going to lie. I watched it in a pub because I was out, and it was hard to see certain angles of it, so I wasn't the best view. But some of the things they were doing, I was like, oh my god, this is not Saints of last year. But it's the first game. We just got to step back.
Yeah,
first
game. I think
that's it.
It stood out to me like the passing game just wasn't there, and it's like the one thing that we were really, really good at last year. It was like almost like an instinctual thing, and it just seemed to. I mean, that one time where, and I'm sorry, it's been a while since I've watched it back now because we're doing this on a bit later on in the week. But that one try that we scored, where just like the handling from everyone was just absolutely spot on, and the way that we always play. But outside of that, we just weren't. It was just like some people just couldn't throw the ball. It just wasn't going where they wanted it to go, or people weren't sussing out kind of where they needed to be. And we seemed to be able to do that on instinct last year. But again, it really depends. It's hard to gauge on one game because we could look completely different next week. It could just be one and done in terms of that's the bad performance out of the way and it's all going to come together. But we just simply don't know really what's going to happen from it. But
yeah, it's interesting that one try that the Kemeny try where it all did click. That bit of magic from the timing of the pass from Finn, the angle coming out of the blind side, into the gap, hitting that line from Furbank, and then what did I tell you about Kemeny power and raw pace in the right channels?
No, he still stood out as having a really good game. He still stood out as, I think he's going to do some really, really good things for us and with us. And he's obviously just a winger in a forward's body because he absolutely loves me. He spends all of his time out there, pretty much.
Yeah, we split our flankers, don't we? We keep them in the wider channels when we've got the ball, and he's designed for that. He is being cherry picked because that is a perfect part of his game. Where if you like you say you hit him in space in a wide channel up against a winger, and you're gonna make distance, and he runs all. All aggression, all like limbs flailing, the eyes and everything, determined what he's going to do. But I think he's going to have a lot of success. And I wouldn't be surprised if he scores a lot of tries for us in those sort of manners. The little bit of space created by the half-backs, a little bit of mystery movement from Furbank, and then boom, you got power, raw pace, and a wider channel. But yeah.
Yeah.
Who else sort of stood out? Let's go away from the team performance. Let's think about individual performances.
I mean, I'd say Fairbank. It wasn't like a standout performance because it's difficult when, he has standout performances when everyone else is performing well around him, right? Because he can do those really nice passes that everybody's there to catch and open the space. And so it's kind of like the rest of the team weren't at the level that kind of it needed to be for him to do his really best stuff. But I still think he was good. And I still think he kind of stepped up as captain to be like, I'm going to try and lead by example. It obviously didn't quite come together. But I think it's been a long time. It's been a while, to be honest, since I've been able to sort of think to myself, like, he had a bad game. I don't think I've thought that for actually a good couple of seasons at this point, because he had that kind of down period, didn't he, after, he first got selected for England and then it went really wrong really quickly and he got dropped, and then it did affect his performances for Northampton for a while. But he kind of got himself out of that funk, and I don't think he's actually had a bad performance since, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he was one of the better players. I thought he attacked the line well. It's unfortunate that he was the one who got turned over for the interception. But I generally thought he was the one who was going to win it for us if we were going to.
Yeah.
He was the one who was making things happen. I think for me, stood out is Curtis Langdon once again. I thought he was in everything as always. The other player who might be a bit of a sidewinder of a selection, but I thought Angus Scott-Young actually delivered quite a bit. What we were missing quite a bit was some physical presence. We were very sort of workmanlike in defence. Everyone was up on their feet, really getting through the tackles and the numbers, and he must have made an awful lot. We weren't making big dents, and that's what was missing, and that's what you want from a lock. But he, in that role, I thought he stood out as someone he was clearly putting himself about.
Yeah, he's always.
He's a great player, don't you? We all know that. But the problem is, I'm not going to question Dowse because I have no coaching about it. I don't get why you'd play him at 5. Or was he at 4? I can't remember which way around he was. But he's not a lot. He's not a lot. And the power, the size. You need that size, though. You need that size, especially against.
Yeah, but it was just what we had, wasn't it? Because we didn't have Coles, and so it was like you still want to have Kemeny, and so who do you move to 4? And Scott Young is the obvious choice, even though but
you got the new lad from Sarries on the bench, haven't you?
Yeah, you got Hunter Hill, who's been a good squad player for Sarries for a while, right? But Angus Scott-Young sort of got a bit of clout in the squad. He's been around, he's delivered.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not surprised at it. If you think our first choice locks this season are probably going to be Munger, Coles, Lockett, and Mayana Vanua. 3 of them are missing. So
yeah.
It's needs must, and it probably does come down to do you go for the Callum Hunter-Hill, who's an out-and-out lock, who did quite well during pre-season, or Angus Scott-Young, who's very industrial, gets around the park, and has got some pedigree. He's got some credit in the bank with the club, hasn't he? Because he has performed well.
I wasn't dissing Angus. He's immense. He's always he's an out of 10 every match. I didn't mean that. He's a great player and he did amazing. But for his size, I just don't think you can play him at lock because he's not got the bulk.
Yeah, I don't think it's
especially in line out. It's just
it's certainly not something. I think they mentioned that Coles is looking like probably being back this weekend. That he's not necessarily going to start Coles because he didn't get any time or did he get time in pre-season? All feels like the season's age though, but I didn't think he did.
Played since England.
So I wonder if it's still probably going to be Scott Young potentially starting at 4 again, just because Coles hasn't got any minutes. So they might do like they did with Freeman, maybe bringing off the bench,
maybe
because he doesn't have any minutes under his belt. But it depends.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that from a functional point of view with Scott Young, our line-out was actually quite effective. We generally, in difficult conditions, it functioned quite well. Scrum time, we were actually okay. There wasn't really any issues, right? So you look at those two factors and say, well, it worked. And Pearson's a jumper, Kemeny's a jumper, Graham can jump, and then obviously Angus Scott-Young and Munger both jump as well. So from a line-out function, we worked, and from a scrum function, it worked. It's just that bulk around the pitch, but he probably makes up for it by contributions.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if you brought in a big chunky second row like we had with not maybe Moon's a bad example because he was so good, but with like Mayana Vanua, for example. Yeah, he's a big, powerful person, but he's probably not having as many contributions. Maybe he's maybe a bit more impact, but not as many as Angus Scott Young did. So
yeah,
I don't think that's where the issue lay. I think it was just momentum shifted. And we clearly went with an idea of kicking level off the ball, giving them possession, making them run with it, try and win territory. Because they had most of the ball, but we gave it to them. And then I think the plan was to unleash Freeman and Augustus off the bench. And it just didn't. It completely went the wrong way. And
it did also, though, it felt, we've all mentioned Tom Jones before. Like, I'm such a fan of him. And I think he's such a great, considering he's second choice to Mitchell, and he's pretty solidly second choice, because Mitchell is Mitchell. I just think he's such a good performer for us. But I don't know what it was in that game. It just felt, I don't know, and it may just have been also because of Bath and like the impacts they were making. It just, everything felt really slow, that we weren't getting the ball that we wanted as quick as we wanted, and we weren't getting it out as quick because Mitchell is just go, 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 go. Like, he's just, and sometimes that's not what you want, but I felt like in that it's really what we needed. We just needed to try and inject some oomph into it somewhere, and it just, I don't know, it just didn't feel like it was coming from anywhere. I think that was what the problem was. It just felt static, and that's not normally a word I'd use to that's probably the last word I'd normally use to describe us when it comes to attacking.
The thing is, though, this might be debatable, but do you not agree that the champions should have their first match at home? I think it'd be a totally different result if we'd been at home, obviously, because of the Guardians.
I don't know if it would have been a different result necessarily, and I do kind of understand what some people say about, like, if you lose at home for your first game, it might have like a bigger impact than losing away. But yeah, I do feel like you earn the right to kick it off at your own home, as that your first game of the season, you're playing in front of your home crowd as champions. Yeah, I'm particularly, as I know Mark Darbin has spoke before about how, or at least he's spoken to the SEG. I don't know if it's about how we've been away for the last 2 seasons in a row before this one, and so they kind of specifically were looking, and they were specifically looking to try and be home to kick this off at home. And you would have thought that they would really have done that, considering we're the champions. So it was disappointing. But then, an argument could be made that we didn't perform very well and we didn't maybe gel together as much as we wanted. So maybe it was better that we did that on the road than we did it at home. It's hard.
I agree. It's like they should probably be played at home. Like, their champions are probably on their right. But I also don't...
Particularly when you're playing the person that you beat as well. When it's a repeat of it, I was like, it feels a bit weird that you would choose to have that away. But...
The game you're most likely to lose, I don't mind having as your first game of the season. It's almost a throwaway, get some more game time in. And I know it's not, it's a big game, it's a Premiership, but it's a long season. So I think it's a good sort of, right, let's have pre-season, have that really tough fixture away from home, see where we are with everything. And then, next week, we cover... We pull everything together and we go again at home. Next week's almost the start of the season for me. I think last week was like an extension of pre-season, a good test of where we are. But I don't think it mattered, the fact that it was away or not. I think we weren't good enough. I think if we had been at home, we might have won it. The home crowd gets involved and all this sort of stuff. But getting back to the game, I think. Like I said, I'm not. There was actually parts of that where I thought actually we're not too bad, and like you said,
agreed.
The pace of the ball, etc. That did come when Augustus came off the bench and we started getting more game breaks. Mm-hmm. Once we started actually getting over the game line, the play became, and that's what we're gonna need, aren't we? Like, you're playing against a team with a massive defence like Bath. You need to break the line, you need to break contact, you need to win collisions, or you're going to get the static play, like you say, because you take it to line, the ruck takes forever, the defence sets, then you've got the ball. You need hit the defence, quick turnover ball, they're still moving backwards, and you're rolling over. It's that's where we're doing. It's the collision bits. If you've got a hulk of a man like Moon or Ludlam or Laws, you can just give them the ball and they'll get you over the game line. But to ask Angus Scott Young as an example, Go on, mate. Hit that brick wall, mate. Get over it. It's hard.
Yeah, but they're gone now. And I know what you're saying, but they're gone. We got to move on, and it's
Yeah, but Coles
Like
is also another one of those that can do that for you. You know, he absolutely loves making a break and he loves running with the ball. So I do feel like he was. If I was going to say who was out of the people that we still have, you know, people that who was missing, or who do we really I would have said that we really miss the presence of. That's probably who I would pick, to be honest with you.
It's weird, Coles, isn't it? Because he does make things happen, and he's got that bit of like tiny sprinkling of X factor where he gets a missed offload in, or hits a soft shoulder, or you know his support play for a second row. You know, he's on the shoulder of a centre, and he's through. He's not the man like, you know, he's gonna just like run over a man and get you 5 yards. He's the man who's just gonna, his general support play and his offloading and stuff, he makes stuff happen and gets you those meters by a bit of ingenuity and skill, as opposed to bulk, which is like not what you expect for a big second row, is it? But he does deliver that.
He does.
It was just pants.
Moving on. All right, that's the end of that one. It's pants. We've determined it. Yeah, that's the end of that.
No, I will say like that. Yeah, no. I just say like it's just something like I kind of agree with you, Charles, about like there were some really good snippets in there of like this is what we can do. It's just it was just nowhere near enough, like you said. And so yeah, in some areas it was pants, and in some areas I was like, if we'd just done that, if we'd, you know, just trying to do that and focus on that way of playing, which is our way of playing, then it could have been different. But yeah.
And the moments were in there, weren't they? It's just about doing it for 80 minutes. You know, the defence was there for 60 minutes, essentially. The attack was there for bits and bobs. You know, if you get the two of them together for 80 minutes, then you're back to where we were and why we were champions. But yeah. So moving on, Chiefs, a tough ask, a really tough ask. They lost their first game in. I couldn't believe it. Right, first of all, I didn't want them to lose because they were playing Leicester. Right, but they were the better team for most of that game.
They were a better team until they lost at the end.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Like they didn't believe they lost that game. But
no, they're going to be they're going to be a wounded animal, because like, you know, we lost fairly substantially, but we lost away to Bath, which is notoriously hard. But yeah, to get turned over right at the end by Leicester at your own home, they are not going to be chuffed about it.
Especially when they played so well, you know. I think there's a really good side in that Exeter team in the making. You look at their 1 to 15 and you go, wow, like there's actual. I think within a year or two they're going to be legit contenders for the title. The whole side is slowly falling into piece, and also young, high potential that's going to get better.
Yeah.
You know, you only have to look at their back row and go, bloody hell, like that's some serious talent in the making. So, the game and also the way they're playing is completely different. They're not the Chiefs of old where they bore you to death on your own line. They've got some ability and pace out wide. I think Saturday's game is going to be sensational. Like, I think you've got two prospect teams with incredible amounts of talent on the pitch that trying to play in the right way. It should be a real fantastic game, I think.
Yeah, I hope so.
I hope so. That's what I was thinking. Please.
To be fair, give Chiefs their due. They have been rebuilding, haven't they? Because they started off with their academy, won all their trophies they won, and then they've got rid. All them lads have left now, so it's just a cycle. They've started again with, and they weren't as good as they were last year. They were quite low in the table, but they look like they did look like a good side, and they'll challenge us. But it could be an open game because, like you say, we both play that similar type of rugby. So hopefully we win this one.
We just need to be dry. Please be dry.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't bank on that.
No, I'm not banking on that either. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be dry. But
I bet that pitch is already soaked because the Lightning played on it when it was hailing, didn't they?
Yeah, and we've had floods, obviously. Anyone who's listened to this and doesn't live in we've had floods. Very bad floods.
It's raining now, if you can hear it in the background. And it has been for the last week. I don't know anything like it. It just hasn't stopped raining. But yeah, so I imagine that could play into the fixture. What are we thinking team wise? Should we work our way through the side, front row? What are we thinking?
the one we already have, to be honest with you. Manny, Curtis, Big Trev.
Yeah, I think the front row you got to stick
I
with
think
what we have.
I think that is literally the best that we have.
I think it picks
I'm not
itself.
saying I'm not saying that in a bad way. I think that's a good front row, and it's the best that the best we've got. And the reality is, we started off with a loss, so we've just got to go.
Yeah, I think it picks itself.
We're going for it, won't we? Yeah, it picks itself.
I think the bench picks itself as well. It's going to be Smith, West, and Green.
Yeah.
I think that they pick themselves with injuries and who's available. I think it's going to be a tough old ask for Manny up against the biggest man in the world, Aaron Painter. I mean, we tried our best to keep him mobile. Bloody OX haven't. They've just doubled down.
It's a difficult one though, isn't it? Because I know it's the beginning of the season, but he just looked unfit. Like I wasn't looking at that as someone who looked like he was fit and healthy. And I don't mean because he's big, he's supposed to be big, that's his job. But I just remember watching it and thinking he doesn't look like he's like fit, like match fit in terms of how. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens. But then it's the start of the season, isn't it? So it may just be because of that. But they brought on, was it Yosefa Scott, who's bigger than him apparently in terms of weight, and you could just see the level of fitness between the two seemed vastly different, at least to me. But
yeah, but that's it though, isn't it?
I'm also not a front rower, so I don't know.
He's old. He's an old school prop, isn't he? He's basically a lump that you just put in the front of the scrum, and you ain't moving him. Hopefully, that's what they've got him for. He's not there to run down the wing Tom Weir used to and stuff like that. He's not built for that, especially when he left us.
But
moved down to Devon.
Yeah.
Done with all those pasties and everything, isn't it? My God.
I feel like that's maybe where it's difficult, isn't it? Because obviously the scrum's a huge part of the game. But I feel like maybe Painter's kind of weight and size it gives him the one up on Manny. But I feel like what Manny can do around the field outside of that gives him the edge over Painter. So it will depend what happens. If it's going to be wet and we're going to have a lot of scrums, yeah, maybe Manny will struggle because there's probably going to be a fair amount of drop balls. But I also feel like Manny's much better just around the park generally, like tackling and getting himself involved. I think he has the one up the edge in that sense. So it just depends what happens really on the day.
It's not always about his size though. It's the technique because Ferguson's got a very not light pack, but we've got one of the lightest packs in the Prem. We must have, and we won the Premiership with it. So Manny's not a big lad, is he? Really, he's a big lad, but he's not.
I wouldn't say we have a particularly light pack last season. I think that might be a misconception. When you had Trevor Davidson and then you had Alex Moon, and there was quite a bit of weight in that squad, right? But this pack now is a bit lighter, definitely. But Aaron Painter makes a difference in any sense when there's a scrum. Like the man's enormous, but if you can get low, I can't remember who it was. It would have been the Tigers loose head. Can't think who was playing, but he at one point took Aaron Painter really low.
Yeah.
And got a lot of benefit out of that. And I imagine Ferguson, Ferguson is a real legit coach in that sense. And I imagine he saw that and goes, well, we know what we're doing then.
We know what we're doing, yeah.
we're going to be scrummaging an inch off the floor, But yeah. Right, second row. Are we going to...
Assuming that Coles is fit, which they seem to think he will be, then Coles and Munger, I think is, again, I think, again, picks itself really. But
is Timo back now?
He will, but he's just played internationally, so I'd be very surprised if they ask him to play immediately in a starting capacity, because not only did they play internationally, but they won, did they not? So he's probably also
it was a hell of a game.
They've probably been doing a lot of celebrating and a lot. So I don't know what state he's going to be in terms of like that. So I'd be very surprised if they say, "Oh, you've got to come back and start the game immediately." So I would still thinking that they're going to start Munger, even if Timo is on the bench potentially.
I do love Angus, but against Exeter, they've got a big pack. You need to.
Yeah, no, I think Colsey needs to come. Like I said, if he's not fit, then Scott Young is probably who they're going to have to go with. But assuming that Colsey is, and they seem to think he's going to be pretty much there, then I think, yeah. But then, like I said, I did mention earlier about minutes and that he hasn't had any. So it depends how he's feeling and what's going on there, really. Because again, they may just be forced into having to start Angus.
I wouldn't be surprised. If it's the same again with Coles on the bench, just because it's a big ask to jump into a Premiership match with no minutes.
With no minutes, yeah.
And they said that Timo's going to get full MOT, see where he is. But they won the Pacific Nations Cup, and it's a long flight, and I just can't imagine he's getting chucked straight in. There was great rights to do and he played really well. Japan at stages of that game were insane how fast they were moving the ball. It was getting back to how they were a few years ago. But
no, I think we're within our rights to use them if we want to. But I'd like to hope they give them a little bit of grace to kind of recover from what was an international competition essentially, and all the things that come with that. So I have a feeling that, like I said, assuming that they're going to do what they did with Tommy and not start Alex, then we may see Angus. But I mean, taking all of that out, if I was just going to pick two people based on who's the best, I would pick Coles and I would pick Munger based on who's available and around. But yeah, we probably, I agree with Charles. I think I'd be very surprised if we saw him start. But then we also don't know anything about where he feels like he is, where the team feels he is. But with no minutes plus, and I'm assuming some kind of injury that they've obviously been managing or some kind of niggle or whatever, I don't know if it's worth the risk of just bringing him in to start. But
I'd actually start Hunter Hill personally, but I'm not a coach. But just for his size, and then just if Coles is fit to put on the bench, 60 minutes, bring him on. Just because you need some bulk, because like you said, Aaron painted himself, but they've got a huge pack, and you need that pushing it. Because if it's ranked, it's going to be a forwards game, and it's be scrum after scrum. So you don't want to be pushed back, penalty after penalty, because you know what will happen.
It's a big statement, though, isn't it? To rates third season, Angus and Munger are starting, and then one iffy performance. Right, Angus, you dropped. You got to I think and if we're going to scrummage, I know they're big, but we might try and scrummage low anyway. So I'm I think you probably go with the same, and then have Coles on the bench rather than Hunter Hill. But back row unchanged, or are we bringing Augustus in?
It's really hard, isn't it? Because literally the difference between when you pick Graham first or when you pick Augustus first is just purely based on the opponent. I don't think it's got anything to do with the two of them. They're just so different as eights that they're not comparable in terms of who's better than the other. They're just too different. It's really it kind of depends. So with Bath, the idea probably was what you said, Charles, about keeping it close and then bringing on someone like Augustus to start pushing and try and take the game away. And that does also work, but then they might decide this time that actually they want to take the game away first before, it really depends literally all about what they've decided tactically. Because I think with 8, you could pick Graham or Augustus, and as long as it matches how you want to play and how you think the opponent's going to play, you're going to be fine.
I'd start Augustus.
But I probably would start Augustus, I think we need to perhaps make a statement to start off with after. But I don't think it's a bad thing if they start Graham either.
I think I'd keep it the same. Keep Graham in, and then bring the power of Augustus off the bench when the gaps start to open, because he can turn a small gap into a large. I'd keep it the same. Halves, are we saying there's no change?
Well, Mitchell looks like he's injured.
Mitchell isn't going to be ready. So you got no. Again, no choice.
Right. So now we're into centres and back three, and they might overlap a bit. This is what I'm putting out there I'd go Dingwall, Freeman, Slytone, Ram, Furbank.
Yeah, exactly the same. And it's nothing against Hutch. I actually thought Hutch was super solid against Bath. I actually thought that he played better than I was expecting him to. And that's not to say that I was expecting him to play bad. But, I actually thought he put in a really solid performance. But he's not Dingwall and he's not Tommy Freeman. To kind of, put it as bluntly as possible, he just isn't. And I think, that's...
It's a different
It's I'd say it still is, obviously with the exception of James, because we don't have Mitchell. But literally from 10 to 15, it's one of the best combos in the world still, I think. Particularly as a centre pairing. I think they're almost second to none, particularly in the Premiership. So I'd go exactly them.
Yeah, I think like I said, that's what I think. I can understand if they do go with Hutch and Freeman remains on the bench, because I don't see who you drop in Slytone and Ram. So I know Freeman is probably better than both of them, right? He is probably our best winger, but he's probably our best 13 as well.
I'm not sure I'd argue he's our best winger.
Different type, slight.
Yeah, different type.
I think Freeman's one of our best players, full stop. So.
Oh god, yeah,
no,
of course.
No, 100%.
But he's versatile, isn't he? That's the thing.
Yeah, I think it's a versatility, and I think he could literally play any of those, and he wouldn't necessarily lose anything. I still think that what Ram and Slightholme offer is complementary to what Freeman offers. I think you need them alongside, like, to get the best out of. So yeah, I'd still say that Ram and Slightholme are my first choice wingers over Freeman.
Right, yeah.
But Freeman is he's ridiculous. I'm pretty sure he was like Austin Healy's favourite person last season, who was just talking about him all the time.
Yeah, no, I think like say you're picking in England, you got one England spot, and you got those three to pick on the wing. I'm picking Tommy Freeman. So therefore, I'm saying he's probably our best winger because even though I'd play him at 13, I'd say technically, out of all our options on the wing, he is the best of them. But I'd play him at 13 and have Hutch off the bench as a player who can add a lot of guile and energy to the last 20. He can come and start pulling the strings at the end.
We need to utilise Slightholme though. Like he had about 2 touches on the ball the entire time he was on. I don't understand why. It's that you've got the top try scorer from last season by quite a big gap. Like 5 tries is actually quite a significant gap between the person that's in second place, right? He scored 5 more than anyone else. I was like, you just weren't giving it to him. He was ready for it. He was waiting for it. He was signalling for it, you know. And I was just like, what are we doing? You know, he's one of the most dangerous people out there. What are we doing?
That's also down to Bath's defence, though, isn't it?
Yeah, no, 100%.
Taking him out the game, you're doing the get in the face of the centres or the scrum out passing to him.
We got to get him. I bet even the commentators on TNT said it when they went off. They were like, they've not used him. Like, why have they not used him? Like, they were kind of questioning the same thing. Like, even if it was just you did it and it didn't quite go well because of Bath's defence, but it just felt like we weren't even willing to kind of try. So yeah, we've got to get him into the game because he's just a complete. I mean, for someone who's, you know, he's big. He's pretty well built for it, but the pace he has is ridiculous.
Oh, he's massive. He's a massive.
And the ability to judge, because you see him. I always find him that he's quite Johnny May-esque in terms of like they both love to run sideways because they just know what they do it, but they just find a gap. So you watch both of them because Johnny May did it for England quite a few times, but you'll watch Slightholme just run sideways and sideways and sideways and sideways, and all of a sudden, you know, he's really good at testing the defense. One of the best out there at doing that, kind of thinking like I'm going to keep running this way because I'll be able to manufacture something. 9 times out of 10 does, and I think we need that.
I think against Bath it's a case of just the way the game went because they had a lot more of the ball than us, right? So therefore instantly we're not gonna have the ball to give to our wingers. But then also they didn't particularly kick to them either. That was probably a decision not to kick to them. But you know, your wingers are often going to come in to get either because you're going wide and getting the ball to them, or in that counter attack. And the only times we really saw them against Bath was in that counter-attack stages and phase of the game, but it just didn't work on the day. But yeah, I mean, like you said, they all offer different things. They're all, you know, phenomenal athletes.
Yeah,
and
also, like we said, it's the combo of them, right?
All those three.
Yeah, it's like the combo of, isn't it? From like literally from 9 through to 15. It's just the fact that somehow they just can work in perfect harmony. Because I always say this about Finn Smith. I said, you know, normally we talk about how you need to give someone time to come into and settle into a new team because it's probably a different way of playing, a different style of playing. But I always just remember thinking that Finn came in and it was like he just got it like that. And it was just the perfect fit. It's just one of those rare times that someone comes in and it works immediately. And it's such a settled backline now. And like I said, it's maybe Freeman is a better winger than I still not quite sure I would necessarily say he was a better winger than the others personally, but yeah, it's what they can all bring together. It's how they all work together, that they can all complement each other, and they, like I said, they all bring something slightly different, whether it's kind of Ram with kind of the gymnastics edge that he's got to himself, like the just flipping height he can get just to catch a ball, like, you know, he's completely dominant in that kind of area, isn't he? And Freeman with the crazy pace, and Fairbank with the passing, Finn with the passing, like, and Ding. I still maintain that Dingwall, I think, is one of the smartest rugby players out there. Like, he just seems to get the game, it's not about doing the flashy things. It's about doing the things he knows is going to get you the win. Like, I think he's such an underrated but integral part. And then Freeman is he's just world class, isn't he? Like, just.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal player. You just want him on the ball. That's why I like him at 13.
Yeah, and that's how it's the way they work together. It's like individually they're all absolutely class, but together I can only really think of it as like it's magic when it's all working well. Like, it's literally, I feel like, second to none.
Right.
The problem you have is, though, just quickly, is I think Ram would be a better fullback because of his catching ability, but you're not going to take Furbank away from that because he's world class at fullback. Again, Tommy Freeman is a great winger, but he's also a world-class centre. I think we do lose his attacking a bit more if he's not on the wing. But then Ollie Slightholme was the highest try scorer. So the problem is they've all got such good different abilities. It's where you put them, and you got to put them all in the team.
Yeah.
But then sometimes you're losing their ability at the other position, so you're a bit screwed. Because there's a player slightly better that you would think, well, they're shoo-in as a fullback, like Ferbs. I'd play Ram at fullback.
I think that's why it works so well, though. It's like, yeah, like maybe playing Ram at fullback, you do lose something from Ram, but you gain something for Furbank. So it kind of, I always feel like kind of evens itself out and somehow just works somehow. So like you said, you get Freeman in the centre, you might lose some of his wing ability, but you gain it with having Slightholme out there, for example. Like, it's a kind of give and take of like, how can we best utilise them as a group, isn't it? And like, I mean, you literally as an individual, you can use Tommy Freeman anywhere, but I think as a group, to make it work as a group effort, he is best in the centre position.
Yeah, the only one I think that's got a position that he just plays is Ollie Slightholme. The rest can play. Obviously, Dingers can play either centre, but the others can just play anywhere. So that's the bonus. They can switch. But Ollie Slightholme is a shoe-in winger, nothing else. That's it.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, and the back three are interchangeable anyway. Like, Ram at 14 has to use his ability in the air plenty of times. As I know he's not a fullback, but you're essentially playing a lot of the same thing being at 14. You're covering the backfield a lot. You're taking high balls just as much. If the ball goes up from a box kick, most of the time it's actually going to the blindside winger rather than the fullback anyway, because that's how you pivot on your pendulum. But it's just a balance of making sure you've got the right mix of ball strikers, runners. We're going to attack the gain line and run with the ball, and then the guile of the creativity. Like, so if you put Freeman in at 13 instead of Hutchinson, you're actually losing out Hutch's ability to pull the strings and create space, and put other players through. So it is a balance. Like, yeah, Freeman, I'd go Freeman, Slightholme, Ram, Furbank, and your two ball players are Ferbs and Finn. But you having Hutch in there gives you another dynamic as well. So, like you said, having players, you take one from one and you lose it elsewhere. From all of those players, it's the same. You'd love to have them all on the pitch because they all bring completely their own skill and their own ability. And
I mean, Freeman's always a really good example though, because like for England, he should be on the wing because of what they already have, in the centre positions. Like, it makes perfect sense based on what that team looks like. And I just think based on what our team looks like, which is a different team, centre is what works best. Yeah. Like for them as a team. And so, but it does showcase his ability just as an individual player is like off the charts with Tommy.
I just think you lose his attack. You just lose his try scoring ability so much when he's in the centre. Because when he's on the wing, he can run through people. When he's centre, obviously, he's more in contact. I know he's still world class in both positions.
Yeah, and to be fair, he still scored a fair amount of absolute bangers last year. So I still feel, and like you said, for me with Freeman though, it maybe is his try scoring ability that like is a really big part of his game, but it's just his around the field like ability just to get through and create space, and he can do that from anywhere. To be fair to him,
I think what he brings to the centre position is the fact that one is angle of attack. He cuts beautiful lines, gets off shoulders. Create space by hitting the right angles and pulling the defence around, but also his power. He's underestimated in terms of his size. He's a big bloke, and in that 13 channel where you've got, it's the hardest place to defend because you've got multiple options to defend at once. If you've got someone who's got a bit of X factor in terms of pace and power, they're more likely to break a tackle in that channel as opposed to on the wing where you've got to deal with touch as well. So that's why I think his angles as well as his just physical ability makes him the best. Anyway, we need to wrap this up. Let's get to some predictions.
Okay.
Right.
I'm just having a look at the weather, and currently it is set to be dry.
I'm going for 2 because that's exactly why. So I'm going.
Fingers crossed that it's dry.
If it's dry, I'm going 32-26 to Saints. If it's wet, I'm going 19-15.
Makes sense.
Okay. Jess?
I'm not gonna give 2 because that's cheating. That's cheating.
It's not cheating.
That's cheating. Yeah.
I'm just gonna go for 1. So I'm gonna base it on the fact that the weather currently says dry, with the sun out. So I'm gonna go 28-22 to Saints.
Okay, interesting. I think it'll be a tight affair. I'm gonna go 23-20.
Yeah, we've all gone for fairly small swings, to be fair.
Yeah, I think it'll be. Yes, we've all gone Saints by a little bit. So that's the overall prediction.
It's what we all did with Bath, to be fair. I mean, we were wrong, but we all went by a little bit,
To be fair, unless we're playing Newcastle, it's generally the pick we pick every week. Saints by a little bit. We're not giving variety in our picks, but anyway. Thanks everyone at home for listening once again. It's been really nice going over, thinking about the horrors of Bath, but we should look ahead to Exeter with hope. So thanks very much for listening. I've been Charles McGillivray. Simon Stacey, and Jess has been Jess Kettle.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.